Hi everyone. One of the important topic today we are discussing, not only for your exam purpose, it's useful for your daily life. So you may be more interested to see how to manage various problems, various issues that you may have, your friends may have, your family may have. So directly we are moving to that topic, that is treatment modalities in psychiatric nursing. In that, major one is psychotherapy. Psychotherapy, the word psychotherapy is very powerful one. And if you want to define that psychotherapy, it is simple. Psychotherapy is a process where a therapist is establishing a relationship with the client deliberately with an intention to remove, modify, or retard maladaptive behavior in the client so as to live a positive and productive life for the client. So few terminologies are coming in that, few words are there. That is deliberately. The therapist is deliberately establishing relationship with the client. Then what is the objective of that one? Of course, to change maladaptive behavior, to retard maladaptive behavior, to modify maladaptive behavior so that patient can have adaptive behavior. So in day-to-day life, patient may have various maladaptive behaviors, and these maladaptive behaviors are actually problem for them, problem for the family, problem for the society. So if one identify some behavior as maladaptive, we can modify that maladaptive behavior. The process of that modification is known as psychotherapy. And at this level, you must be able, you have to differentiate between counseling, guidance, and psychotherapy. So these are the three terminologies usually comes in our day-to-day practice. What is counseling? What is guidance? And what is psychotherapy? Psychotherapy I already explained. So deliberate relationship establishments between a therapist and the client. Whereas in guidance, anyone can guide you. Anyone with experience can guide you. It is not a professional one. For example, if you are visiting a faraway place, one tourist place, one historically important place where you are not that much familiar about the things, that is what is there. So if you appoint a guide, he is experienced, he is well versed with the various aspects. So if you go with him, if you accept that guidance of that individuals, you will be able to explore that area much effectively and productively. Then counseling is a professional one. Here the counselee is coming to the counselor. The counselor is explaining various aspects, various possibilities, various available resources with respect to that one, and the counselor is explaining both pros and cons and helping the client to accept which one is apt for him. That is what is counseling. Whereas in psychotherapy, it is the therapist is establishing with maladaptive behavior, client with maladaptive behavior, with an intention to modify that behavior. So guidance is a primitive one, maybe a preventive one, maybe promotive also. Counseling is of course therapeutic or preventive, promotive and curative, whereas psychotherapy is both curative and rehabilitative. So that is the basic concept behind these three terminologies. So it may come during your clinical posting, counseling, guidance, and psychotherapy. You must be able to differentiate what exactly all these things are talk therapies. Now we are moving on to types of psychotherapy. So when we learn types of psychotherapy, various classifications are there. For example, based on number of individuals involved as a client, it can be individual psychotherapy, group psychotherapy, family psychotherapy, marital therapy, or couple therapy. So from the word it is clear, if the client is one, if the therapist is giving this therapeutic interactions or interventions for a single individual, it is individual psychotherapy. If the therapist is providing therapy for more than one individual with similar problems, it can be group psychotherapy. And if you are providing this therapy for a family, it is family therapy. And if you are giving this therapy for a couple, married couple, then it can be a couple therapy. So that is based on the number of people involved. Another classification is theories applied. Here the therapist can apply various theories, and based on that theory he can provide this psychotherapy. For example, psychoanalytical psychotherapy. In psychoanalytical psychotherapy, the therapist is applying psychoanalysis theory for various issues related to the client. Then behavioral therapy. In behavioral therapy, the therapist is using behavioral theories, learning theories. Then cognitive therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. In cognitive therapy, cognitive psychological aspect, cognitive theories are applied. Cognitive behavioral therapy, both the cognitive and behavioral therapy, theories are applied. Social therapies, various social theories are applied. So based on the type of theory you apply, you can classify this psychotherapy. Then of course, based on principles, what principle therapist is adopting for solving the issues of clients. In that, first one is supportive psychotherapy. Here the objective, the principle of that therapist is support, guide, or reassure the client. So if that is the principle, that psychotherapy is known as supportive psychotherapy. Then reconstructive psychotherapy. Here the therapist is trying to reconstruct the psychological structure of that individual, dismantle the maladaptive concept, maladaptive structure of the mind or structure of the personality, and rebuild that personality step by step. That is what is reconstructive psychotherapy. Then re-educative psychotherapy. In re-educative psychotherapy, the what the therapist is trying to change what the person has learned previously. Maybe the wrong one. So the therapist is trying to modify what the client has learned. So that is what is re-educative psychotherapy. Then behavioral therapy. In behavioral therapy, the objective of the principle behind that behavioral therapy is to modify the behavior. What is observed? Here the therapist is not going in detail or in depth regarding the various aspects of behavior. What we can observe. The client may have certain problems, and this problem can be observed by the family, by the colleagues, by the teachers, by the friends. In that situation, we need to modify that behavior. Here the therapist principle is to modify that behavior. That is behavioral therapy. Next one is cognitive behavioral therapy. Here it is based on the concept that emotion, thought, and behaviors are interconnected. Every behavior are associated with some emotions, and these emotions influence behavior. Emotions are influenced by the thoughts. The thoughts are influenced by emotion. The thoughts are influenced by the behavior. So all these three things are interconnected. So if you want to change something, we can start with emotion, we can start with the thought, we can start with the behavior. So gradually the chain can be, that link can be modified. That is based on the principles. Next type of classification is level of probing. How much the therapist is probing to that situation. For example, superficial psychotherapy. Here the therapist is dealing with the superficial aspects, not going in detail. Whereas in deep psychotherapy, the therapist is going in depth, analyzing various aspects of psychological structure of that individual. So that is what is deep. Then educative psychotherapy, based on the level of probing. Here the objective of the therapist is to educate the clients, put information into their mind. So that is what is educative psychotherapy. Next type of classification is based on responsibility given to the client. So as I told, it's a relationship between the therapist and the client, and the therapist can proceed with that relationship with his own objective, and based on that objective he can communicate with him, and based on the responsibility given to the client, that means directive psychotherapy and non-directive psychotherapy. In directive psychotherapy, the therapist will direct the client to speak or focus on the specific area which the therapist believes to be the important one. That is what is directive psychotherapy. Whereas in non-directive psychotherapy, the therapist will not guide anything. The client can free float whatever they want. He can go wherever he wants, and from that the therapist can pick the important area and finally help the client to modify the behavior. That is what is non-directive psychotherapy. So this is basically about different types of psychotherapy. Now we are moving a little bit further. Psychodynamic psychotherapy. So that is one of the important area in psychotherapy, psychodynamic psychotherapy. We will discuss little bit regarding that one. For exam purpose, you may get an essay related to psychotherapy, or you may get some short note related to, for example, psychoanalytical psychotherapy. So we will discuss little bit there itself. Here certain assumptions are there. Psychoanalytical psychotherapy, the word itself is clear. The therapy is based on psychoanalytical principles by Sigmund Freud, all those theories. And there are certain assumptions behind this therapy. First and foremost one is, every current behavior is influenced by the past experience, childhood experience. Everything decides current behavior. If you are observing any maladaptive behavior in the client right now, it is because of the past experience according to this psychoanalytical therapy. And based on that one, if you want to modify current behavior, you need to focus on the past. So you need to go in depth regarding the past and analyze what all things happen, and from that you can root out what exactly happened at that time, and that can relate and you can modify the behavior. So that is what is first assumption. Second assumption is, nothing happened by chance. That is, psychic determination means everything happens in the mind by previous experience. I already explained. So that is the assumption related to psychoanalytical psychotherapy. In that, various techniques are there, various techniques we adopt. First one is free association. In free association, here the client is allowed to speak about a particular thing, and without censoring he can speak what is there in his mind. At that moment, what all things are coming to his mind, he can speak out. From that, the therapist can identify certain clues, and based on that clues, he can build up the relationship, build up the analytical process, and finally conclude what exactly was the problem related to that. So by analyzing the speech made by the therapist, made by the client, we can find out exactly where is the problem lies. That is what is free association. And based on the speech, from the speech, the therapist can identify, we get some insight related to patient problem. That is what is free association. Next one is therapeutic alliance. Both the therapist and the client work together to achieve a desired goal. Here, the therapist and the client will establish an alliance, a relationship, and with a specific focus, they will work together to identify. Whereas in free association, the therapist will keep somewhat passive role, take some passive role. The client will speak about what all things are coming to their mind, and from that the therapist will catch. Whereas in therapeutic alliance, both are ready to share, and based on that objective, they will work in a particular area, and they will derive what all problems, what all things they want. That is what is therapeutic alliance. That's another important area, that terminology that you may come in psychoanalytical therapies. Another important thing is resistance. So during the process of the relationship, you may come across with resistance from the part of the client. The client will not disclose everything. The client will not attend regularly. He may show some disinterest, and they will many a time will not attend the sessions at time, and sometimes they will skip that sessions. So all this shows that the client does not want disclosure of his mind to the therapist. So that is one indication to terminate the relationship. Resistance, because the trust is the basic thing that we have to establish during this therapeutic relationship or therapies. So if the client shows this resistance, that means he has no trust on the part from the on therapist. So that is very important. Now, acting out. Sometimes the client may show certain behaviors that to express his idea or emotions in a distorted way. He will not say anything. From his behavior, from his emotional status, we can identify that he has some problem. That is what is acting out. That also you may get. Therapist can interpret what he gained or observed during that one. So in between, the therapist can explain that I can observe this behavior from you, and this behavior may be because of these many things. It may be right or wrong. So after long sessions, they can identify exactly where the problem lies for the client. That is what. Another important thing is transference. You may be familiar with this term when we learned about therapeutic communication. Transference is a stage where the client may identify certain attributes of the therapist, which was there in those individuals who was significant for the client in his past. That means client may have so many relationships, so many important persons in his life, any relationship. So some characteristics which were present in those individuals, the therapist behavior the client may see such behavior or such sort of behavior in the therapist. So that is what is transference. In transference, the client can identify certain behaviors of the client, or emotions of the therapist, similar to that of significant others in his previous time or past. So that is what is transference. Whereas in counter transference, the therapist may find certain behaviors, certain feelings in the client which was significant, which was present in someone in his previous one, significant one. So that is what is counter transference. So that can also see if the person is developing transference. It can be somewhat used for therapeutically, because here the person has some significant relationship with the client, because it may be because of the certain attributes present in this someone in his past. So that is what is transference and counter transference. Now we can see what are the indications of psychoanalytical psychotherapy. In psychoanalytical psychotherapy, so many indications are there. First and important one is long-lasting psychological problem. So whenever a person is coming with a long-lasting psychological problem, psychoanalytical psychotherapy is the best choice. Here the therapist will do so many things. Then neurosis, various anxiety situations. If the client is affected with anxiety, according to this theory, current anxiety is because of the past experience, childhood experience. So you can analyze the past and identify exactly what is the reason for current anxiety. That is another indication. Then personality problem, personality disorders, eating disorders. If the client is with low motivation, so enhanced motivations, we can use this psychoanalytical psychotherapy. What are the, now we can see what are the contraindications, or when this psychoanalytical psychotherapy won't work. First one is when the person is inflexible. He will not, he is with a stubborn nature. He will not change. He will not establish therapeutic relationship. He cannot establish trusty relationship. Such client, we cannot do this psychoanalytical psychotherapy. Psychoanalytical psychotherapy cannot be performed in individual who is with strong resistance, and it is not possible with non-cooperative patients. And most important one, in acute psychotic conditions, any psychotic conditions with acute symptoms, this therapy won't work. So that's all about psychoanalytical psychotherapy. Psychoanalytical psychotherapy is nothing but, here the psychoanalytical principles are used. Psychoanalytical principles are nothing but current behavior is based on past experience. Analyzing the past will resolve the current behavior. Indications we discussed and contraindications also we discussed. Now we are moving towards next one is behavioral therapy. It's an important one. Behavioral therapy is based on the learning principles. Every behavior is learned. So operant conditioning and classical conditioning. We learned a lot related to these two type of conditioning. In classical conditioning, unconditioned stimuli, conditioned stimuli. You may be familiar with that experiment conducted by Ivan Pavlov with that dog. So that concepts are associated, that principles are using in this behavioral therapy. Classical conditioning and operant conditioning we will discuss in another video. So we will proceed with this behavioral therapy. And so many techniques are using in this one. Here the focus of therapist is to modify the behavior, not going in depth related to behavior. Current behavior is modified, and current behavior, one shortcut you can have ABC. In ABC model of behavior, B means behavior. Every behavior is associated with A, antecedents, and every behavior may result in consequence C. A, B, C. Antecedents, behavior, consequence. So if you want to resolve some behavior, you need to focus on the antecedents. So every behavior is followed by an antecedent, some antecedents. Antecedents can be anything. It can be internal or external stimuli. If it is an external stimuli, modify that external stimuli so current behavior can be overcome. And every behavior results in consequence. This consequence can be anything, simple or complex one. It can again act as an antecedent for future behavior. So that is a basic thing in behavioral therapy. We'll see one by one what are the techniques used in this behavioral therapy. First one is JPMR, Jacobson's Progressive Muscle Relaxation Technique. Here it's an easy one. Here you are explaining that progressive muscle relaxation to the client. Mostly indication for this Jacobson progressive muscle relaxation technique is anxiety disorder. In that you are instructing the client to follow certain sequential steps that the therapist will explain. Ask the patient to sit straight with a straight back, take a deep breath, then ask the patients to focus on the lower extremity, then instruct the client to pull out, tighten lower extremity muscles as much as possible. Then the therapist will ask the patient to focus on the upper abdominal part. Then instruct the client to tighten that abdominal muscles. Then ask the patients to tighten the chest. Then instruct the client to tighten the upper extremity. Then ask the patients to client to tighten the muscles of the face. Then hold it. Then gradually in opposite sequence, ask the patients to release that tension. For example, ask the patients to release the tension from the face. Ask the patient to release the tension from the upper arm. Ask the patient to release the tension from the chest. Ask the patient to release the tension from the abdomen. Ask the patient to release the tension from the lower extremity. So definitely, if you practice this technique, definitely you will get a relaxation. Whenever you are anxious, you can perform. Anybody can perform these techniques. That is what is Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation. So it's a learning process, and through this learning process, you are changing that anxiety. So that behavior, that expression of that behavior is changed. That is what is Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation technique. Another technique is systematic desensitization. It's another important one. Here you are allowing the patients to systematically desensitize. The main indication is anxiety, phobia. In that situations, you are instructing the client to use this technique, systematic desensitization. Systematic desensitization, first thing you need to do is, certain steps are there. That steps you can follow, and based on these steps, you can have the systematic desensitization. And first step is identification of that feared object. So when the client is coming, the therapist's first role is to do a detailed assessment. Based on that assessment, you can find exactly where this anxiety is located. Anxiety related objects. Identify that objects. It can be a neutral one. Cockroach can be a neutral area where the person is experiencing anxiety. So identify that one. Then establish an hierarchy. So which one is more anxious producing situation, whether to directly contact with that object or thinking about that object. That hierarchy can be, for example, in case of school phobia, actual presence of that individuals in the school in a working day is the maximum anxiety producing situation. Next less level is presence of that individuals in that school in a non-working day. Then little bit, the lesser anxiety producing situation is watching school from a distance in a working day. Little bit more less anxiety producing situation is watching that school in non-working day, from little bit far away from that school. Then again, little more less anxiety producing situation, watching a photograph of working day school. And again, little bit lesser anxiety producing situation is watching a school or photograph of that school in non-working day. Again, lesser anxiety producing situation is seeing that school photograph. So this is the hierarchy of events related to that particular anxiety. So this is the second step. First one is assess which one is anxiety producing. Here it is school. Then you established that hierarchy of anxiety producing with respect to that object. The next step is teach them relaxation. Any relaxation technique, as we discussed previously, that is Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation, you can teach them. Then gradually expose that individual from less anxiety producing situation to more anxiety producing situation. So in case of that school, first you show the photograph of non-working school. Then definitely client may have little bit of anxiety. If the anxiety is escalating, ask the client to use that relaxation techniques what you are taught. Then step by step you are making the client to reach the maximum anxiety producing situation, and finally you will be able to take the client to actual real life situation, that is in taking back the client to schools in a working day. So in between he can practice whenever he is experiencing this anxiety, he can use this technique, that is relaxation techniques. That is about systematic desensitization. Another technique is flooding. In flooding, instead of grading or instead of making that hierarchy of events, you are directly putting that individuals into actual anxiety producing situation, then teaching the client this progressive muscle relaxation techniques initially itself, so that he can practice. So directly you are life situation you are making the client to face. If it is a live situation, it is flooding, and if it is an imaginary situation, it is known as implosion. Flooding and implosion. Flooding, actual live situation where you are making the client to face the actual live situation. In implosion, you are making the client to imagine that you are in that actual situation. Both are different, but flooding is the concept behind that one. Next one is shaping. Here one big behavior is there, and you are cut shorting that big behavior into small steps, and gradually building upon these small steps, finally you are reaching the final behavior. That is what is shaping. Next one is modeling. In modeling, you are making the client to follow a role model. The therapist can be a role model, the teachers can be a role model. You are identifying a role model and ask the patients to mimic or do exactly what this role model is doing. That is what is modeling. Here maladaptive behaviors can be removed with the help of this modeling. Next one is token economy. In token economy, you are providing certain tokens, and these tokens can be given to a client whenever the client is showing some positive behavior, and later on these tokens can be utilized for some material things. For example, if the client is there in the watch, and if he shows some positive behavior which was not present in the client, we can give certain tokens. Green, some caps can be given, and if a person is getting 10 caps, 10 tokens, that can be utilized for purchasing one favorite toffee, something he wants. That is what is token economy. That is also effective for modifying the behavior. Next one is timeout. Here the therapist will explain this is adaptive behavior which is acceptable. These are the maladaptive behavior which is not acceptable in this group. If you show this maladaptive behavior in this group, you will be taken out. You will not allowed to participate in this group activity for some time. That is what is timeout. By doing this repeatedly, we can modify the behavior. Next one is chaining. Chaining is also another behavioral modification technique that we can adopt. Two types of chaining: positive chaining, forward chaining, and backward chaining. Here again, the steps of one particular social skill is divided into small steps, and you are instructing the client. He will show the steps one by one. Therapist will show the steps one by one so as to finish that entire procedure. Then you are asking the client to do as the therapist shown. For example, you are asking the patient, for example, with the brushing, you are taking a brush and you are instructing, see, this is the brush, I am taking this paste like this, then I am capping that paste, keeping here, then I am putting some water in this brush, now I am brushing like this, now I am taking this brush out, now I am washing this brush, and I am keeping this brush in this pouch. So brushing is a entire procedure. I am shifting or dividing this brushing into different steps, and I am dividing that steps and asking the client to repeat one to last, first to last. That is what is forward chaining. Whereas in backward chaining, same step. So for example, I am asking you to teach you how to wash your hands. So you will hold the patient's hand and see, I am opening the tap. Now I am rinsing with water. I am taking soap. I am putting the soap on my water on my hands. Now I am doing this hand washing. These are the steps, and finally I am I am taking this water from the tap. Then I am rinsing my hand, then taking a towel and drying it. These are the steps. In backward chaining, the therapist will again do the every steps as I described, and will stop the last one where the client has to do the last one independently. Next time the therapist will stop 2 steps before, so that the client has to do last 2 steps. Then the client next time the client therapist will stop at the 3 steps before, so as to client has to continue with the rest of the 3 ones. So like that you are teaching the client to do certain procedures. That is what is chaining, that is backward chaining. That is also very useful to change modify the behavior. Here the washing behavior, skill training, especially useful for children. Next one is aversion therapy. So aversion therapy is nothing but here you are clubbing some unpleasant things with the some pleasant situations. For example, alcoholism. Why these people are taking this alcohol? Because whenever they consume this alcohol, they are getting some pleasure. So that pleasure centers are stimulated, and the client may go for this alcohol again and again. If you take this alcohol and if you are not getting that pleasant, instead of that pleasant experience, if the person is getting unpleasant experience, he will not have the tendency to take this alcohol again and again. That is what is aversion therapy. 2 types of aversions are possible, that is chemical aversion as well as physical aversion. Next important therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy. From the word it is clear, cognitive behavior theory or therapy. So basic principles behind this cognitive behavioral therapy is psychoanalytical principles, cognitive psychology and behavioral psychology. Aaron Beck is the proponent of this cognitive behavioral therapy, and according to this therapist, this therapy can last for 6 to 20 times. Once in a week, can go up to 20 times. According to this therapy, behavior, emotions and thoughts are interconnected. So if you want to modify the behavior, you can start with the emotions. So emotions are linked with the behavior, emotions are linked with thoughts, thoughts are linked with emotion. So everything is interconnected. In order to change something, you need to focus other areas also. So it's a continuous cycle. So that is what. Another important thing he explained is cognitive triad. Cognitive triad means 3 important things, that is negative view of self, world around and future, and schema. So these are the triad which is associated with the behavior. A person's negative views of self, the world around in which the person is living, and his future, the thoughts related to future, and schema which he's developed from birth onwards, the schema what he has. So based on that schema, he is viewing this world with his own perspective. He will not change. So can be the negative thoughts can be the reason for his current behavior. If you want to modify that one, you need to change that behavior. So in order to change that schema. So once you can change that schema, you can change that negative views of self. it can be influenced by the world around him. Then this another aspect that discussed in cognitive behavioral therapy is cognitive errors. It is because of the cognitive errors, the distorted thoughts, it is influenced by the automatic thoughts, which is influenced by emotions. So I already told you emotions, thoughts and behaviors are interconnected. So once a person is with a negative thought, negative views against on self, it can be because of this. It is interconnected. Then this errors in thinking leads to negative schema. Negative schema in turn affects a person's behavior. So that is what is the concept behind cognitive behavioral therapy. If you want to change that behavior, you need to focus on this area. Here the therapist is active, whereas in behavioral therapy, a little bit passive role the therapist is taking, whereas in this cognitive behavioral therapy, the therapist is active. Here the therapist will help the patient to identify the problem, identify the negative thoughts and cognition, and teach the patient to challenge and replace these behaviors. Here the therapist is active. He is helping the client to identify the negative thoughts, negative schema, and helping the patient to challenge his behavior. That is very important. And you are helping the client to incorporate positive thoughts instead of this negative. That is what is cognitive behavioral therapy. It's very effective, especially when the patient is with some thought problems, when the patient is preoccupied with thoughts. Certain indications are there. Main indications are mild to moderate depression. In those clients with mild to moderate depression, cognitive behavioral therapy is the best choice. Then anxiety disorder, especially obsessive compulsive disorder, phobia, eating disorders, very effective. For eating disorders, cognitive behavioral therapy is very effective because it is something related to his negative perception of self and negative schema. So everything is interconnected, and based on that the client is behaving in a particular manner. So eating disorder, very effective. Then next one is substance abuse disorder. In substance abuse disorder also, cognitive behavioral therapy is effective. Residual delusions and hallucination. Whenever the person is with residual delusion and hallucination, cognitive behavioral therapy is the choice. Now approaches, two approaches are there, cognitive approach and behavioral approach. In cognitive approach, you are focusing on thoughts. In that you can have thought identification, helping the patient to identify the thoughts, thought substitution, thought rehearsal, thought testing, thought diary. We'll see one by one. First one is thought identification. In thought identification, helping the clients to identify the thoughts. Exactly what was the thoughts based on this current behavior evolved. It may be negative thoughts. Then thought substitution, helping the client to substitute that negative thought with a positive thoughts. Thought substitution, thought rehearsal. Once the positive thoughts are implanted, helping the client to rehearse that positive thought whenever such situations arise in the future. That is thought rehearsal. Thought testing. You can test that thought so that the negative thoughts are not coming. So the client can test. Thought diary. Whenever the client is getting a negative thoughts, ask the patient to put on a diary. Positive thoughts and negative thoughts. So these are some of the approach that we can have in cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive approach. Psychoeducation, that is also effective. Whereas in behavioral approach, you can have role play. You can have active skill training. Then graded task mastering. Physical exercise, socialization. We'll see one by one. First one is role play. Here the client is allowed to see a role play where the role play members will act as per the problems involved in that client, and from that role play the client has to observe what is positive and what is negative so that he can change his behavior. That is what is role play. Then activity scheduling, that is the second one. Activity scheduling. In activity scheduling, the therapist is helping the client to schedule an activity so that the negative behavior, negative cognitions, negative thoughts are not coming. So always that the client will be able to do this activity in a packed activity. So scheduling this activity will help the client to avoid that negative thoughts. Then graded task mastering. Here a task is giving, and this task will be divided into different grades, and the client will be proceeding from low task to higher level of task. That is what is graded task mastering. Then physical exercise. Whenever the negative thoughts are coming, whenever this negative cognitions are coming, he can have that physical exercise, and through that you can modify that behavior. Then of course socialization. Socialization is another approach that we can be used in this cognitive behavioral therapy. So the cognitive behavioral therapy is very important. You may get a short note sometimes. Next one is interpersonal therapy. That is very important therapy that is developed by Harry Stock Sullivan. It is based on the interpersonal relationship, and it is also involved with the psychoanalytical model. Intrapsychic process influences behavior. That is the basic concept. Intrapsychic conflicts, intrapsychic process influence current behavior. So if you observe a maladaptive behavior in a client, that is because of the intrapsychic influence. What is happening inside the mind? Mind is influencing behavior. That is the concept. Then socialization influence behavior. How far a person is socialized? If the socialization is perfect, his behavior will be perfect one. If you observe a maladaptive behavior, it is because of the poor socialization. Socialization starts from home. Then gradually that socialization circle increased day by day. That is according to Erik Erikson. So that socialization process is very influential on behavior. Then behavior evolve around interpersonal relationship. That is the basic concept behind this interpersonal theory. Early experience influence behavior and self-esteem. So self-esteem of an individual is based on the interpersonal relationship, what he had in the past. So definitely self-esteem is influenced on the previous experience. Disapproval causes anxiety, and they are very much concerned about rejection. So interpersonal relationship is very important. Socialization is very important. If that interpersonal relationship and socialization is properly completed one, the person will not have any problem, and the person will not have any anxiety. That anxiety is resulting from the interpersonal relationship. Interpersonal, then it will end up with a rejection rejection. Two complex drives influence behavior. According to this interpersonal relationship, two complex drives are there. First drive is drive for satisfaction, and second drive is drive for security. So current behavior is influenced by the interpersonal socialization, interpersonal relationship, and if that socialization process is perfect one, current behavior will not have any problem. And two drives are influencing the current behavior. First drive is drive for satisfaction. Second drive is drive for security. Drive for satisfaction is nothing but that is the basic needs. That is need for food, need for fluid, need for oxygen, need for shelter, need for sex. So those are the basic need. That is, if the person achieved this one from the society, from the interpersonal relationship, he will have a better satisfaction. So that person will not have a maladaptive behavior. So when you observe a maladaptive behavior, it can be because of the problem related to this particular thing. That is what is drive for satisfaction. Next one is drive for security. So drive for security means once the person is achieved that relationship, and if he was comfortable with them, so his needs were accepted by the society, that means he was secure, he was well established at that time, he will not have any problem. So current behavior is influenced by these two drives. That is very important. And that therapeutic relationship is based on trust. Very important. So once the person can develop that trust in interpersonal relationship, he will not have any problem. Next one is self-esteem. That interpersonal relationship therapy, we focus on establishing self-esteem, given power to relationship. Here, the therapist will establish a relationship with the client who is with anxiety, and this anxiety is because of the poor interpersonal relationship or socialization in the past. It may be because of the drive, that is satisfaction drive or security drive. That is the basic concept. Now we are doing that therapy where the therapist is establishing relationship with the clients with an intention to modify the behavior, and the therapist will therapist know that this current behavior is because of the past. Here the trusty relationship are establishing and helping the client to develop that relationship, and here with an intention to increase that self-esteem, he is acting as a psychological mother. So this is the concept explained by Hildegard Peplow, mother of psychiatric nursing. So Sullivan was the person who proposed interpersonal theory, which explains about human relationship. Human relationship and socialization is the basic thing. Once it happens normally till date, the person's behavior will not have any problem. If the person has the current problem with the behavior, it is because of the past, and that past can be related to drive. Drive can be drive of socialization, drive of security, and drive of satisfaction. And therapist will establish a relationship so that this distorted relationship can be re-established, remolded, so that he can have that psychological mother concept. So that is the concept behind this interpersonal therapy. Next one is humanistic therapy. Here the patient's view of world and his problems. That is, here according to this therapy, every problem is associated how the person sees the world. The cognition of the person is very important. Then helping the patient to realize full potential. So humanistic theory, first concept is the current problem is because the person's distorted view of the world. How the person view the world decides his behavior. If a person is with a distorted behavior, it is because of the problem with his views of the world. Second thing is, the therapist will help the patient to realize his full potential. Most of the time, the client will not realize how much potential he has. So in this therapy, the therapist will help the client to identify the potential of himself. Then unconditional acceptance, that is very important. In humanistic therapy, the therapist will show unconditional acceptance. It is because of the problem with the acceptance from the society, acceptance from the others, the person may have problem. And positive regard, always show that positive regard, that is important. Therapist sees from patient side, that is very important. That is, the patient has problem and the therapist will try to see the current issue from his perspective, so that he can identify what exactly is the problem, and he can show the remedial measures and help to clarify his emotions, because in this relationship he can identify the client is with emotional problem, behavioral problem. Once the therapist can see this issue from the client's perspective, he can explain what exactly this emotion is behind, or what is the reason for this emotion. That is the therapy related to humanistic theory, humanistic therapy. Next one is milieu therapy. Milieu therapy is very important, and therapeutic community and milieu therapy most of the time uses these words interchangeably. And the word milieu means middle place, and in therapy it can be environment or setting. Most of the time group therapy is a group therapy. Milieu therapy is a group therapy. Group of people are involved, and the environment and the people involved around that client is acting as therapeutic, and the professionals will support that modification. For example, the client with maladaptive behavior is living in an environment where so many other people are also there. So he may have an abnormal behavior, and from this abnormal behavior others will point out, and possible environment, this possible environment will definitely influence, that is the constructive environment will help the client to modify his behavior. Most of the time the client's basic needs are taken care in that environment. For example, food, sleep, shelter, every needs are met. So that is the basic need. In an environment, the basic needs of the client is met. Then protect from own and others maladaptive behavior. In milieu therapy, so many people are there, and they may have adaptive behavior or maladaptive behavior. Client may have adaptive behavior or maladaptive behavior, and in this milieu his maladaptive behavior can have some problem, and we need to protect. So in that atmosphere, daily meeting will be there where they can express their concern and can show his maladaptive. Others will point out his maladaptive behavior and help him to change that one. Then shelters the patient from what perceives as painful and anxiety and providing support. Here the client may have certain problems, tension, anxiety, and this shelter will provide support. The client will have that feeling that others will support him, others will help to modify his behavior. It's a structured life where each one of will act as a therapist, and each one will help to modify their behavior. That is what is milieu therapy. John Maxwell is the person who proposed this therapeutic community concept, and it is very well established in American culture, where this maladaptive behaviors of criminals or forensic psychiatric patients, so psychiatric patients, substance abusive patients are very well changed, that behaviors are changed based on this milieu therapy. Then group therapy. Group is very important. In group therapy, more than one individuals are the client, and therapist will provide care, and different types of groups are there. It can be closed group, open group, homogeneous group, heterogeneous group, problem focused group, support group, self-help group. So based on the type of group, the therapist may vary. In open group, anybody can come and anybody can go at any time. Open group. Closed group, a group is closed. Once the group is formed, no one can come or no one can go unless it is that therapy process is over. Then based on the objective, problem focused group, for example hyperactivity children. Here a group of children with hyperactivity will be taken and therapy will be given. So that is problem focused group. Support group, for example caregivers of patients with autism. Caregivers of autism will be taken as a group and therapist will give the care. Then self-help group, for example Alcoholics Anonymous. In Alcoholics Anonymous is a support group where the previously alcoholic individuals will come together and share their experience, and this experience will be useful for next client who want to quit alcoholism. Then Al-Ateen, it's a self-help group of teenagers of alcoholics. Teenagers of alcoholics may have their own concern, so this self-help group will share their concern and they will resolve their problems. Al-Anon, spouses of alcoholics, support group for spouses of alcoholics. It's a support group that is also there. Next one is family and marital therapy. In family and marital therapy, very important, it's a group therapy where the family members will be the client in family therapy. In marital therapy, couples, both husband and wife will be the therapist. That is what is family and marital therapy. In family therapy, importance are giving to communication, how communications are taking place in that family. Self-concept reinforcement. In this family, each members may have self-concept, and how others are supporting this self-concept, that is giving importance. Expectations. Each family members may have expectations on others. So the therapist will identify that expectations of each family members on each other. That is important. Then interactions. Say how much that interactions are taking place and how far that interactions are effective. So in the family therapy is nothing but the therapist will give therapy for a family or a couple, and if the couple is the client, it is couple therapy. If the family is the client, it is family therapy. The therapist will focus on communication, self-concept reinforcement, expectations, interactions, etc., so as to identify the problem distorted area and will help to modify that thing. That is what is family therapy. The objective of this family therapy may be socialization, support, task completion, information, empowerment, governance. So these are some of the focus where this family therapy is providing. Then there are certain important concept behind this group therapy are, that is curative factors. So in this therapy, any therapy can have that curative aspect, that can be installation of hope. In family therapy also it is possible, installation of hope, because most of the family members may have that hopelessness. So installation of hope is the objective of the therapist. Universality, because it is universally same thing, so you must convey that it is universally present, these issues are present. Then imparting information, very important, that is the therapist has to impart information. Altruism, doing good for others. Then corrective recapitulation. So during that process of discussion, the process of communication, you can recapitulate that positive reinforcement, corrective recapitulation. That means you can correct it. So this was the thing and this should not be happen. So you can have that corrections. Development of socialization technique. Most of this problem in this family is because of the socialization problem. So once you can teach them the socialization technique, that is very important. Then imitative behavior. So if you show some, we already discussed in the modeling, that is if you can show some models, role models, and if we can make them to imitate this model, so that is can effective for modifying the behavior. So imitative behavior is another curative factor. Interpersonal learning. So interpersonal learning is also possible. Group cohesiveness. In group therapy, in family therapy, that group cohesive. Once this individual feel it as a cohesive group, that is very important. If that cohesiveness is there in the family, that family can be a functional family. That is very important. Catharsis, emotional flow out, emotional feeling can be ventilated effectively, can open up their issues. So another important aspect related to the curative function is catharsis. You are allowing the clients to ventilate their feeling. Pent up emotions has to be resolved. So that is very important. The last part is psychodrama. Psychodrama is another important therapeutic tool that we can use for changing the behavior. So here there will be some confusions related to what is the difference between role play and psychodrama. There are certain basic difference in this role play and psychodrama. First I will explain what is role play. In role play, you are making the client to see a play where the other team members or the group members will act in front of the clients. Predetermined scripted roles will be acted by different individuals, where the client will simply observe the role played by the team members and they can adopt certain adaptive behavior. Here the client is very passive, simply sitting and watching a play. The play is predetermined scripted one that therapist will direct, or the team members will direct the play and act in front of the client. So simply it is role play. Whereas in psychodrama, there is no predetermined script. Here the therapist and the client will act their own role, and the role will be distributed just before the starting of the play, and each one can say whatever they want. First the client will given the role of the client himself, and the family members of the client will be acted by the different therapeutic team members. After some time, the role will be reversed. The client will adopt a role of their mother, and the therapeutic team member, one of the therapeutic team member will take the role of the client. Then again, same set of actions, they can proceed, they can speak whatever they want. So in between, the client will express what was their concern, what is his concern unknowingly. When the role is reversed to another person, then he will explain his role and what he is expecting from the other one. For example, the client will, actually the problem is between the client and his father. Then the client will given a role of client, and one of the therapy member or therapeutic team member will act as father. So when this role is played, the client will express his concern, actually what exactly is with his father. Then after role reversal, the client will get the role of father. Then the client will speak as he is actually expecting from his father. So from that, the therapist can identify exactly what is the problem between the client and the father. So that is what is psychodrama. In psychodrama, different steps are there. First thing is role distribution, then role acting of the acting, then they will analyze each step, then role reversal, again feedback. So based on that, the therapist can get some information, idea from the client's issues, and client also will ventilate their concern. So that is what is psychodrama. By this we are finishing that important topic, that is psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is nothing but it's a talk therapy between the therapist and the client. But the therapist is establishing deliberate relationship with the client with an objective to modify his behavior. Different therapeutic modalities are available, which is very important. You may get an essay from this area, or you may get some short notes from this area. So if you have any doubts regarding this one, you can comment below or call me. Thank you.